Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Where have I been? I don't even know. So, I've fully realized that it has been a very long time since I've posted, and a very long time since I've posted consistently, and I'm still not sure what I'm doing with that, but I have a whole lot of books to wrap up today. I am gonna split this video in half because I have so many books to talk about because it's been so damn long since I've done a book wrap up, but that's what we're here for, a book wrap up. So if you want to see all the books I'm about to talk about, then just keep on watching, and that's all I have to say. So let's get right on into it. This video is not gonna be fun because I'm wrapping up books that I read all the way back in August. So I'm literally like going on Goodreads on my iPad so that I can like remember the book. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about is Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. I read this back in August. In fact, it was the first book I read in August. And I gave this 4 stars. First of all, this is the gorgeous Owl Crate edition. I think the normal edition doesn't have as much orange in the background, if I can remember correctly. And also it has metallic gold sprayed edges. It's honestly so pretty. I think that this isn't much different than the original, but anyway, this book is stunning. It's extremely eye-catching, and I wanted to read this book mainly because I had seen a couple of good reviews, but it was brand new when I got it. Like, it was pretty new, and so there weren't a ton of reviews, but I saw some good reviews, and I'm a lot into sci-fi now, and this is kind of what like kicked it off for me. This book is about a girl who gets put into an 100-year cryo sleep with her family and a bunch of other people, and all of a sudden she wakes up and finds out it's 900 years too late, and she wakes up to this guy who keeps calling her goddess, and she doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know what planet she's on, and all that kind of stuff. 100% honest, the first 50% of this book I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. Wasn't really into it, kind of pushing myself through it. But there is kind of a big plot twist that happens in that general area, like middle of the book kind of area, and ever since that happened, I could not put this book down. So I will say, if you've picked this up, if you've maybe were thinking of picking this up, or if you put it down because the first 50% you didn't love, definitely keep going. So my favorite part of this book was Zaid. He's our other main character. So we have, I'm gonna forget her name, Andra, and like it's short for Andromeda. So we have Andra and then we have Zaid, and Zaid is like this person who's always has ulterior motives and you never know what's going on. So the entire book I wanted to know more about Zaid, and I believe you do get, yes, you get dual perspectives in this book, and I think it's really well done. I didn't love Andra the whole way through. I didn't really love her till towards the end because she definitely struggled with her confidence. I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think it's a good thing to show in literature, especially young adult literature, but I personally couldn't connect with her in that sense, I guess, because she was always kind of complaining about herself to the reader, and it kind of got a little old, but I do, if I remember correctly, she does kind of grow out of that in a sense. There is a very slow burn romance between the two, very slow, and I think that if you're working with a fantasy or a sci-fi fantasy, this kind of slow burn did it perfectly, where like it definitely is a big part of the book, but it doesn't overwhelm the plot. But it leaves you wanting it so badly that when it finally happens, it just feels so good. But I promise you, I loved the slow burn romance in this. I was lucky enough to get to be able to debut the cover of the second book, which I will put up right here. It is so intriguing and just as stunning as this. I'm really excited to see this series progress. It is young adult, but it doesn't feel like young adult. It definitely feels like a more mature young adult, where older young adult readers, or you know, people my age in their 20s and stuff who like to read young adult, I do think you would like this. But like I said, first half of the book is a little slow, a little like, am I on this wavelength? But then once that twist happens, you don't stop, okay? The next 2 books I read, I'm not gonna talk too much about because they were rereads, and I'm gonna put them on the screen right here, and it is The Raven Boys and the Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a reread for me, obviously. If you know me, you know how much I love this series. I actually started rereading The Raven Boys while we were camping, and I ate it up. I think I read it in like 2 days, again, like, or something like that. And then I picked up The Dream Thieves right afterwards, and I kind of did the same with that. I read it really fastly. I did continue on, but for some reason I'm struggling with rereading the third one, and I think it has to do with more things which I'll talk about later. But I love these books so much, I gave them 5 stars. They were almost just as magical as the first time. I will say, I think I should wait like at least a year to reread a book, and I reread these like 4 months after reading them for the first time. I wish I could talk. And it was still magical, but I don't think it was as magical as the first time, and I think I'm gonna reread them. I'm gonna give myself a much longer time to reread them because I adore this series so much. It means so much to me, and that's really all I can say. That's really all I should say, because I could talk about this book series for days and days. The next book I read was one of my, oh hi Jack. The next book I read was one of my most anticipated reads of this entire year, and it was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a horror, historical horror? I don't know what the right term is for them, but this is not a thriller. Like, I would not consider this a thriller. I would definitely consider this more of a horror, and it's not young adult. It's definitely adult. There are adult themes. There are some very dark things that take place in this book. But if you didn't know anything about this book, we have our main character, who, of course I forgot her name because it's been forever. Noemi. Oh yeah, I love her name. It's so pretty. Noemi. She is a young 20-something, living it up in Mexico City. She loves just to flirt with boys and hang out, and we love Noemi, okay? I love Noemi. And one day she comes home, and her father hands her a letter from her cousin who just about a year ago had recently been married off and moved away with her husband, and no one has really heard like what happened to her cousin. We don't know. It's a very concerning letter, and her father goes, I want you to go check out what's going on with your cousin. We're very concerned. Now that is the biggest, like, why would a father do that? Like, I don't think my father would ever do it. He would never be like, okay, you need to go check on your cousin. I mean, he should go check on the cousin or something, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I still was able to subscribe to the book even though that was a little dodgy. So she goes, and it's in this house, and lots of trouble and horror and stuff like that ensues. I really liked this book. I gave it a 4.25, and I know that seems really picky. I just don't think it was 4.5 worthy, and I'll explain why later, but I loved this book. I listened to the Crimson Peak soundtrack the entire time I was reading this, which was a glorious thing to do. If you want to read this and you like to be spooked and you like to feel the vibes, then listen to the Crimson Peak soundtrack while reading this. First of all, Crimson Peak is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like really, really high up there. I love that movie so much, and the soundtrack is one of my favorite. So good. But one of the things I really, really loved about this book is the house was a character in itself, and I love that trope, like, or that theme, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's so intriguing that a house feels like a character. And there was a side romance between Noemi and I think he's the cousin to the person her cousin married. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. Like I said, it's been a while from this. The one thing that really bothered me is she kept saying like how ugly he was, and it's like, I don't really think it's necessary. Like, maybe he's not the most attractive, and that's fine, and you've told us. So lay off calling him ugly. Like, it just frustrated me because I loved him so much, and in my brain I did not like picture him ugly. I pictured him as this cute boy, okay? Not like a insanely attractive or insanely handsome boy, but as an attractive, cute boy, okay? And that was perfect for me. I just ignored it when she called him ugly. But I really, really, really liked the side story of romance. I thought it was a perfect touch to the book. I don't think the book was as scary as far as like horror as maybe some people had said, or maybe what I was imagining it to be before I picked it up, but I still loved it. Highly recommend it. Tabbed it. Great moments. I liked the twist. I know some people don't like the twist towards the end. It's kind of weird and gross. I liked it. I don't know. I mean, I didn't love it, but I liked it. So that's all I have to say about that. After Mexican Gothic, I read this. I got an arc of this graphic novel on NetGalley, and it's called Mary, The Adventures of Mary Shelley's great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter. And it was really cute. I really liked it. It was very goth. I loved it. It felt very, I connected to the vibes of the book. And I don't really have much else to say, so I'm just gonna read my short little review. I said, the art is absolutely stunning, and our gothy main character is everything. The story developed a little too quickly for me, but I genuinely adored everything else about it. It felt rather unique, and I think young readers will truly love this. I love the idea that Mary Shelley had these powerful descendants, The author added a beautiful touch of feminism to the story, which felt very true to Mary Shelley. Also, this is a perfect read to gear up for Halloween because I read this back in September. So, that's really all I have to say about it. I gave it 3 stars. If you're looking for a cute new gothy graphic novel that has a lot of Halloween vibes, then that's it, even though we're in December, almost in December at this point. And then after that, I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I was very excited for this. I tabbed this. I very much enjoyed it. I don't think it was like incredible. I gave it 3.5 stars. I do have like some complaints, but overall I did enjoy this story very much. The things that I liked, the vibes were there. It felt very Sleepy Hollow, even though it has nothing to do with that kind of a story. Like, this is very different, but the setting felt very true to Sleepy Hollow, because in Sleepy Hollow it's like this sequestered little town like off in the middle of nowhere, and that's kind of how this feels. And also there's the spooky vibes feel very similar. I loved the secondary character Ezra in this book. He is the son of the bishop, I think, in this town. If you did not know, this is like a puritanical society, and there were witches, and the witches reside in the forest, and the church of this town says like you can't go in the forest. And then we have our main character who came from like a blasphemous parenthood, I guess you could say. Her mother like went off and slept with somebody she wasn't supposed to, and that's how we created our main character, Emmanuel. In order to fit in, Emmanuel just wants to do her best. Like, she's just worshiping, putting everything she can into this gospel because she already feels like an outsider. She doesn't want to feel like an outsider anymore. One day, on accident, Emmanuel ends up in this forest. This forest is where the very like first bishop of this church killed the witches, and these ghost-like witches come upon her and gift her the journal of her mother, and that's where everything starts going downhill. There are plagues in this book, lots of interesting topics on religion and everything like that. I really liked that side of it. I hated the puritanical aspect because it's icky. I hate that, but the religion aspect and everything else that goes on in this book was very intriguing. I really liked Emmanuel. She had a lot of drive and ambition, and she craved to be better than the people around her, and it was very well done in my eyes. Like, that idea was very well done. Like, she wasn't willing to be a bad person, but she also knew that there was better out there, and she went after it. A lot of blood, a lot of horror, a lot of darkness in this book, so just be prepared. It is very dark. It is definitely more on the horror side. Emmanuel has a great friendship in this book. I love a good friendship in a book, and I loved the relationship between her and Ezra. And I was kind of shocked because I genuinely thought this was going to be a standalone, and it turns out that there's going to be another book, and I definitely will be reading that. And the reasons why it wasn't a full 5-star or even a full 4-star was because I never really felt like I understood the magic. Felt a bit info dumpy at times. Like I said, I did not like the puritanical aspect. It just was icky. I hated it. I really hate that idea. And I wish it was more witchy. This is definitely like sold as a witchy book, and there just wasn't enough witchy stuff for me. But overall, like I said, I can hardly complain because I really enjoyed this story, and I definitely would read the sequel whenever it comes out. And I don't have a physical copy of this book yet. I do know it's coming in a book box that I haven't gotten yet. And the book is These Violent Delights by, I forget her name, Chloe Gong. I was so excited to get an ARC of this book. I was able to read it back, when did I read this? Early September. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but it is like Romeo and Juliet happened and they parted ways, and she went off to do something, and they came back, and there's this extreme amount of tension between them. So there's a lot of tension and a lot of goodness, in just a lot of tension. Okay, I don't really know what else to say. But basically the story is there are 2 rival gangs in Shanghai, and our main character belongs to, I'm gonna have to look up the names. This is just gonna be a common theme in this video because it's been so long since I read this. Oh, Juliet, duh. I'm a freaking idiot. Okay, Juliet is the heir to the, well, I am not remembering, Scarlet Gang. And then we have Roma, who is the heir to the White Flowers, I think is what they're called. Yeah, they're a Russian gang. And then we have the Chinese gang, Scarlet Gang. Scarlet Gang? Scarlet Gang. I am lost. My brain is elsewhere. Those are obviously our Romeo and Juliet, and then we have lots of great side characters. There's a lot of representation in this book, which I thought was really brilliantly done, and there is a lot of great tension between Roma and Juliet. And this takes place in the 1920s, which is the best decade, and it takes place in Shanghai, which is just such a colorful, full of culture city. And I feel like Chloe Gong did an incredible job of putting the culture and painting it in such a vivid way that you really feel like you are inside of Shanghai in 1920s. It's so good. I did almost give this a full 5 stars, but personally I felt that in the like 40 to 70% chunk of the book that it did slow down a little bit, and it kind of was hard for me to get through. That first 40% I ate up, and then the last 30% I ate up. But that 40% through 70% slowed down a bit, and so that just kind of kept me from giving it a 5 star. That's why I gave it a 4.5. I'm really excited to see where this story goes. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a brilliant young adult book, and I do think it reads a little bit older if you're curious. Like, yes, it's young adult, but it doesn't feel very young, so yeah. The next 2 books I read are both in the same series, and that first one is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and the second one is obviously A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, also by Jennifer L. Armentrout. If you can see, I tabbed the hell out of these, especially, well, maybe they're both tabbed them out the same, but this is such a big book, and I think I read it in less than 24 hours because I could not put it down. This book is a new adult romance fantasy, and it definitely is the 50% romance, 50% fantasy. In fact, it could be a little more romance, a little less fantasy, but it's overall about a 50-50. So our main character, Poppy, is this maiden figure in this land, and she has to remain as this maiden. She can't be touched, can't be looked at. She wears this veil and all that kind of stuff, but she definitely kind of hates what she has to live through on a day-to-day basis. And it starts out with her she had escaped her palace castle thing. She's wearing something different so people don't know she's the maiden, and that's when she first meets Hawk, and trouble ensues from there. And then, you know, a couple chapters later, he becomes her guard. So obviously there's a lot of tension, sexual tension. There's a lot going on between Poppy and Hawk, and I love the bodyguard trope. I die for the bodyguard trope. I think it is such a good trope, and I think this book did it really well. I don't remember what I gave this because Goodreads deleted my review. Have they ever done that to you guys? Because I'm freaking pissed. I think I gave this 4 or 4.5 stars. I thought it was really good. I ate this up. It was so entertaining. I will say at the very end, something happened where I was like, no, I did not like it. And then what I will say about that is it picks up really quickly right where it left off in this book, but it still doesn't answer the question until about, like, I want to say a couple chapters in, and then you get more answers, and then it made me appreciate the ending of this book more. And if you've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to give away any spoilers. I 10 out of 10 would recommend. Even though these aren't 5-star books, I enjoyed these. I ate these up. I can't wait for the third one to come out in April, I think, of next year. And this one, the second one, ends off on a major cliffhanger. I mean, this one ends off on a cliffhanger, but this one feels like major cliffhanger. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. Love these two people, love their romance, very hot and spicy, and a great fantasy story as well, so yeah. The next book I read, or tried to read, was Majesty by Catherine McGee. I ended up DNFing this around 60% mark, I believe. Yeah, 60%. I read the first book, I don't even remember what it was called. American Royals, that's what it was called. I read the first book and really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 3.5, like I didn't love it, but it felt very Gossip Girl-esque. Gossip Girl mixed with American politics and royalty, and it was very interesting, very fun to read, very unrealistic and crazy, but like I said, very Gossip Girl-esque. The second book takes everything that happened in the first book, rips it to shreds, stomps on it, and throws it in the trash can. It is so, I've never given a book a 1 star before, and I gave this book a 1 star, just in case you're wondering. Very few books have even gotten a 2 star from me. I rarely do that, and that's how much I disliked this book. I sold the duology. I sold it on Depop because I was like, I don't need this in my life. The amount of bad energy I felt because of how angry I was towards this book was just astronomical. So I needed it out of my life. So if you enjoyed that book, I'm sorry that we don't share the same opinions. I honestly don't care though, because I hated it so much. If I could give it less than a 1 star, I would. That's how much I didn't like it, because it took everything that happened in the first book, all of the 300 and some odd, probably 400 pages actually, spent on building these relationships, these deep relationships, making you care so much about them, and throwing them out the window in the second book. So that's done. I'm over it. I hated it, and that's that. So I do have 12 more books to talk about, but I think I just talked about 10, and so I'm gonna split it here because a couple of the books in the next video will be like in the same series, and I'd rather talk about them in the same video, if you know what I mean. So I hope you guys enjoyed this wrap up. If you've read any of these books, So my battery just died in my camera, and I cannot find my other battery, so I'm charging it, but I was literally filming the outro, so I just wanted to come on here and finish the outro. If you guys have any of the same opinions as me, or if you have any differing opinions and you read these books, let me know down below, or just, you know, if you like these books, you want to say anything, just let me know down below. But I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a great morning, noon, evening, day, night, whenever happens to be that you're watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.